Like I said in my last video, continuing. And I'm noodling over this issue of intent. People who have been watching my videos and are coming back to see what I'm thinking about and how I'm reflecting on our situation, which is dire. I really do feel that we have come to a development. We have come to a state. The state of the union is severe, and my thoughts on this are basically that what I have reflected on in some of my past videos, that it's not enough to be able to identify all the suspects, including the usual suspects. I think it's important to actually see the motivation, something that is behind that which is causing us the grief that is happening, the Fukushima, the destruction, the fundamental destruction. And I think that Fukushima represents the jewel in the crown of this monolithic event, which is potentially going to end all life on Earth. And I don't say this lightly, from the point that, how can I say this and still be sounding rational and talking? This is something that is extremely disturbing, especially if you're attached to the idea of living and life and all that experience means. And to be able to identify the culprits is important. It's something that shows us where it is we need to go in order not to do a certain thing. It's not so much the idea of punishing as it is not to go that route. So if we're able to identify the culprits, the oligarchy, the history, the 6,000 year of bogus history, but based on oligarchy and the holier than thous that have taken the field, it is an indication of the direction not to take. But what is the origin of this progression of how we move toward the state that we're in? Where does this come from? This is what I reflect on. And my attempt to create images that express the source, in a sense, that where we come from in terms of where we are now. Why do we end up where we are? Of all the places we could be, of all the things that we could have chosen, why do we end up in the place we are? And this is a continuation of my dissertation on the idea that civilization has a built-in or a default mechanism that is called self-destruct. That the very notion of civilization and culture has built within it a form, a mental, what is that? Like a psychic default mechanism that demands of all of us that we go along with this destruction that we see all around us. And the frustration that I feel, and people generally feel that are clued into this, of why people en masse are not rejecting this path, is a puzzle if we don't understand where it's coming from. And the idea that civilization basically provides us with the amenities, what we even call the affluence, that allows us to function in a way that we believe we've never functioned before, which has to do with progress, is obviously very seductive. It is something that keeps I'll give you this example. I'm just catching up on art forgeries and the fakes in art, and civilization is fundamentally based on faking it, and even the authentic people are fakers from the point of view. If you look at a painting, it's a two-dimensional object. that represents the third dimension. I mean, this has changed to some extent with modern history, that there was a deviation or people moved away from the idea of using a canvas as a representation of a three-dimensional reality, but it's fakery. And civilization, in a sense, is based on fakery. Now, I still think that is a good form of fakery, but I somehow am drawn to the conclusion that the people that practice this fakery were not doing it in order to undermine or subvert the way it is being practiced in civilization, but was invented to actually expose and show that the fakery is, even within its glory, how you relish and indulge and enjoy and love the images that are presented by these magicians, these artists, these painters that have produced these images. There is fundamentally no confusion about the fact that it is a fake. It has nothing to do with the reality that we experience. It represents something, but it is fakery. And we all know, the art world knows that the majority, I won't put a number on it, but a lot of paintings that are in museums of great magnificence all around the planet are populated by images, paintings, art objects that are not made by the people that they're said they were made by. They were made by someone else. And quite frankly, if they can be confused, if a Picasso can be confused with an Elmire Daori, who was a major faker, and many other fakers who have produced these paintings that were sold to the unsuspecting millionaires who are basically not interested in art. They're interested in collecting wealth and money. These are basically this is the premise that civilization presents us, that fakery is perfectly all right. And I think art didn't really embellish this, it exposed this. Well, that's my conclusion. You can agree or not agree. You can look at this as some other explanation. But I think it's important, what I think about, how I see this, is not just to identify the culprits, as I've said, but to understand the underlying deviancy behind this behavior, which is the default mechanism that I refer to, that is fundamentally to stop all activities as we understand them and to give an end to this magnificent mystery that we're all a part of, this question. When we look at science and how science is always after religion has done this much longer than science, to subvert us into believing that there is someone that actually knows. Well, nobody really knows. Nobody knows. Whether they're called popes or Bhagwans, Swamis, gurus, Mohammeds or Jesuses, or whoever you want to ascribe this deep knowledge, nobody really knows. We give it a stab. We give it some sort of, we paint a picture about it, but we can't really identify what it is that encompasses us within this mystery of why does anything exist in the first place. But I'm not going to go into that in this case. That it starts to get a little bit too epic. But the notion that civilization was basically a fake. It is a fake to our nature. Civilization is not real, as in fake news. That's a great expression. I mean, Donald Trump is making a lot of mileage on this. And I think that these fakers, the Trumps and the Bushes and the Blairs and the Cheneys, and notice how they're usually guys, and the Bhagwans, and even the lauded ones, the magnificent ones that you want to choose, are ultimately fakers within this construct of civilization. So my conclusion now, I'll continue some of my thought process in this, but my conclusion is obviously what I have said before, that it's a very personal state of being that will take us out of this morass. It's not being able to identify the evildoers, of which there are quite a number these days, but to identify within ourselves the source where our decision process personally has gone awry. So, I mean, it's not a foolproof thing to make a decision, and if it's right or wrong or I'm influenced by in my decisions by things that are maybe not wholesome, and I come to understand it through my experience. But I've always said that I much prefer honesty to truth, because within the concept of honesty, there is a way of deciding that is integral to me. And it doesn't mean that I need to go outside myself to find something that is true, but I find it within myself. And I think honesty is a much greater sort of state of being than hunting down the truth and even finding the lies. As important as that might be, it is something that each person finds within themselves to make the correct decision for their own lives, for my life, every moment of every day. And we would not be in this position. We would not be in this madness of vaccinating children. By the time they're 10 days old, they have 5 or 6 vaccinations of these toxic materials infiltrating all the cells in the bodies of these young, innocent beings. Or you extend that into the larger realm of the nuclear pollution that will ultimately, in its potential, stop all activity on this planet, all biological activity, and what it'll be is some sort of mineral, some sort of a pile of minerals spread out. And how sad would that be to kiss off on life like that? How absolutely brutal that would be. I can't even imagine that. Anyway, I'll upload a few images along with this dissertation. I'm sitting with my leg up, my foot. I've injured my foot. I have fasciitis, plantar fasciitis, which is a stretching of this thing under from the heel to the front of the foot. It comes from the back of the leg down, and boy, does it hurt. So I'm sitting, and it's I think it's coming along. You put cold compresses on it for a couple of days, and it starts to heal, and then the blood goes back in, and the body is a magnificent healing. It is an everyday healing tool. I mean, the body itself, what an amazing mystery. It has all the ability to take care of itself from the beginning to the end. And I even sometimes wonder why we have adopted this within existence and life, the notion of this finite existence in terms of 60, 80, 100, 120 years, as seems to be tops. I quite find that puzzling on a certain level, because the body is self-regenerating and healing, and why should it be overcome by the idea of that there is, again, a default mechanism of end? We sort of have accepted that. I'm not sure what it would mean to be able to find a solution to. It's called aging, but certainly not in the way we're experiencing aging when. As of the time we turn 40, 50, we're full of drugs and pharmaceuticals that keep us going. And by the time we're in our 60s and 70s, we're in and out of hospitals with multiple ailments. And the body no longer has a chance to heal itself, which is part of the destruction that is we are encumbered with. But that's another topic. So anyway, I thought I'd just put this out. I'm sitting and noodling, looking down at my leg as it is trying to regenerate its well-being, so I can walk and do what I need to do.